Leaders without education create bad habits. Follow me. Let's go. Okay, we are live. Hello, everybody. This is JJ Hardy with Victory Leadership Coaching here on another episode of Victory Leaders Lounge. And today we have Leland Jolles in the house, and he is a great guy who will introduce himself in a minute, but we are going to be talking about the power of networking. And he brought up a very interesting concept. We all know that in business, we have to be productive, but he brought up something very specific, and it's for every waking hour of the day, you are either making $100 or you're spending $100. So I'm interested to hear his point of view and maybe some comments on that. Leland, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely, JJ. So it's wonderful to be here. And just a little bit about myself. I wear many hats, I like to say. I am, first and foremost, a husband and a father. I'm also a small business owner. I have a laser engraving business called Leland's Laser Creation. We make coasters, cutting boards, bottle openers, bottle stoppers. I like to just summarize it and say we make unique gifts. I am also a financial representative with Northwestern Mutual. I've been doing that for about 14 months now. So helping clients sort of protect and prosper their finances and grow their financial security. I am also a host of my own podcast called One and the Same, where we have a collection of interviews from people of all different walks of life. We kind of talk about their journey and how they got to where they are and the challenges and trials and tribulations that they went through, and kind of paint the picture that we were all just one and the same. I was also in the Marine Corps for 6 years, so served my country and did that. Like I said, wear many hats, but I kind of love the idea of settling down to how can I take all these many hats and give back to the community, and take all the skills that I have and kind of put it into one cohesive package that can relate to the many.
Sure. And first of all, thank you for giving your introduction. But the two things that we're going to talk about, we in my network, we've talked about networking quite a bit. So I definitely want to get your take on how we kind of move forward with that conversation. But really, I'd like for you to explain why this is a very unique topic for you, of this you're either making or spending $100 every day that you're awake sort of concept. I'd like to hear your point of view. It seems pretty straightforward, but maybe it's not.
Sure. So there's an idea that just came to me randomly, I guess. And it was the thought of, as a small business owner, we don't have the luxury of clocking in and start making money because, hey, we're on the clock. So, as long as we're clocked in, somebody's paying us to be here. There's an activity that has to happen that produces revenue that then becomes profit. So it was sort of this idea of, as an entrepreneur, what does that look like? What are revenue producing activities that might not necessarily equate to dollars in the bank account? So it was the idea of, with every hour, we can either earn $100 or we could spend $100. And so you kind of think of it of, okay, what can I do to earn $100? Well, I can follow up with my clients that I have to reach out to. I can schedule new meetings on the calendar. I can look for networking events that I could be attending so I can continue to grow my clientele. I can do something that moves the needle forward and, in a way, earns me $100. Or I can be spending $100, meaning, when I should be dialing, am I sitting on the couch on social media? Or, am I telling myself, I'll get to those emails, a little bit later. Like, I'm going to go and, catch an episode of XYZ. And it's okay to spend $100 hour. You should, but just have that mindset of this next activity that you're about to embark on. If it means spending $100, are you okay with spending that $100? And if the answer is yes, wonderful. If the answer is no, then it can break down to one step further of, okay, maybe I'm going to spend a half hour. I'm going to go spend $50 on this activity. And then that next half hour, I'm going to go make $50. So it's kind of like a fair trade, was sort of the framework behind that $100 hour.
Hmm. Let's go ahead and frame that in the way of leadership development, because that's really what the Leaders Lounge is all about.
Mm-hmm.
How are you being intentional with your time? And what I'm gathering from what you're saying is that one way to be intentional is to make sure that you're literally either investing your
Mm-hmm.
time in your business, or you are investing your time, which, watching TV, that could be investing time in yourself, because
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent, we all need a little bit of sanity time, or maybe it's spending that time with your family, which, by the way, is probably the best investment that you could possibly spend.
I
So
spend a lot of $100 hours on family.
oh, I would spend $1 million an hour on family. I have no problems with that. Yes. So I love that. I think, it's when you say I'm investing my time, that's another way of reframing that. So that's really, really cool that you decided to just, was there a specific thought that led you to it being $100 rather than $200 or $300, or was that just the first number that came to your head?
$100 was just the first number that came to my head.
Okay.
There wasn't really too much thought behind a $100 hour, because like we just kind of
Mhm.
bounced off one another. An hour spent with family is more than $100.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I would almost, say, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me, that spending time with family is making $100, because you're making memories. So the $100 was just a something to
Yes,
put on there, and it just that base 100 was an easy number to work with.
sure. Well, thank you for explaining that wonderful concept to us. And I'm all about reframing, right? So a lot of people struggle in business, and I help a lot of businesses grow a little bit farther, so that when they're in that growth state already, I wouldn't say a ton. I've only been in business for a couple of years, but I've helped businesses at that point where they're growing, and when they hit that growth part, if they haven't set up all their systems for counseling, communication, reporting, and all that other stuff that, by the way, most people don't even like to talk about, then it tends to really set their business up for either success or failure, and that just depends on whether or not they did it. And so when you talk about the $100 hour, would that time be best spent, in your business communicating with your downtrace people? Or do you want to constantly be picking up this ugly thing and calling and trying to get information so you can update all of your reports? Well,
Mhm.
if you set up the systems and processes there, it really makes things more efficient. So that's kind of twofold. And, I apologize that I kind of put a plug in for what I do there, but it just sparks so many thoughts when you think of, are you spending $100 here? Was it a good investment, bad investment? It just sparks so many ideas. So let's move on to networking, because that was the other thing you had brought up. What is, wow, I think I just had a puberty moment there. What is something that networking has really done for you that made you want to bring this up as a topic that we could talk about today?
So for me, networking was a well spent $100 hour, because as growing, as growing financial planning practice, as growing my laser business, as growing any business, The time that you spend with people, whether that's your, fellow coworkers, or if that's just your clients and customers, that time that you spend with people, because as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, like, you are your brand.
Yep.
Like, there's not really like a curtain to hide behind.
Nope.
So when I think of like what's the power of networking, it's a way to get your brand out there and be sort of, leading the charge of what is something that no one knows about yet. For me, being early in the stages of my business, not a lot of people know about Leland's laser creation or know about my financial planning practice. And I could spend thousands of dollars on marketing to get that word out there and hope that it lands, or I can spend $100 hour to attend a networking event and try to shake hands with as many people as I can until I hear someone say, "Hey, Leland, it's been a pleasure talking to you, but you need to like step away."
Kick rocks.
Yeah. I'm going to keep spending those $100 hours to meet new people, because someone once told me connected people are connecting and connected people are connected.
Yes.
So if I want to meet everybody, well, I need to get connected. I need to start building some links, so that way, as those people are connecting, hopefully something about me is front of mind for them.
Right.
If someone says, "Hey, I'm really looking for a cool set of coasters," I would love if the first thing that came to JJ's mind was, "I know a guy. His name's Leland. He's got a laser business. Give him a call." Or if someone says, "Hey, I'm looking for, financial planning advice." "Hey, I know a guy. His name's Leland. Give him a call." Not, and then the reverse of that, is, "Hey, I'm looking for a guy." It's like, well, I'm sure if you just Googled, laser engraving businesses in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, you'll find a list.
Sure.
And then hope that when that person makes that Google search, they find me. Or I just get myself in the front of mind of everybody that I can. So then when that, so they almost become ambassadors of my mission, of my businesses. And that's why I think networking is such an important $100 hour to spend.
I agree. Well, and it's as you start developing as a business person, you learn that networking turns into something much more powerful than that. So networking is not just meeting a bunch of people. It's also the conversations that you get from that, whether or not that person becomes a customer. You already mentioned that they could be an ambassador for your brand, but if they care about you and they've been in business for a while themselves, they're going to teach you something that you could be doing, maybe in addition to what you're already doing, just to make sure that either your what's that thing called, your elevator pitch gets a little bit better, or maybe, well, you should probably have a little bit of a presence on this social media channel, or maybe there's a networking meeting over here that you should be attending, because I think a lot of people would like to talk to you there, or whatever the case may be. Communities are what make businesses, raise them from children in their infancy, so to speak. And if you don't take those actions and go meet as many people as you possibly can, then you're never going to build that community. And oh, by the way, you want to be a leader in what you're doing. Otherwise, you're not going to have an authority. And why are they going to go to you for their coasters? Why are they going to go to you for financial advice? In addition to that, it's bigger than that. If anybody ever attends any sales training, whether they say it exactly like this or not, your audience has to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you, because at the end of the day, and you also said a little bit of this, they have to want to come to you instead of going to all of those other people or places. And you are the thing, especially as an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, especially, you're going to have to make yourself stand out by just being you. So I agree. Many $100 hours spent just shaking hands is something that can jet propel you into the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's 100%.
Yep. So, what's your favorite type of networking to do? I know when I was doing local community stuff before I really started doing a lot of online networking, I was doing the group networking and then just setting up coffee connections all over the place. Hey, we should get together sometime and go have a cup of coffee. It seemed like everybody, that's what they want to do. Have a cup of coffee. I never had so much doggone coffee in my entire life.
Yeah, I guess for me, I mean, all networking, I guess, would be my favorite. Networking would be like a wonderful generic answer to give you.
Okay.
But definitely in-person networking. I mean, online networking is fun, but I feel like there's a bit of a disconnect, and that's probably just me as an extroverted people person. So, definitely going to like the in-person networking, like the SCORE event that you and I met at, or just looking at what events are happening in town that are not necessarily networking events, but are networking opportunities.
Yes.
And then from there, whoever, we start a conversation with, then it turns into the, hey, let's grab coffee, let's grab lunch, let's continue this conversation.
Sure.
So yeah, and then from there, in that one-on-one conversation is when we can really start to dig deep to see what kind of partnership, we can build together. How can I support your business? How can you support my business? Because that's sometimes hard to do at a networking event when you want to get to so many people. You're looking for quantity over quality.
Sure.
At a networking event. And then you schedule those coffees so you can see, hey, who's a right fit for you.
Let's unpack that. So, in one of my other groups, we did a live stream on that, specifically in our Facebook page group only. But I kind of like to talk about, the strategy that you just said there. So we'll talk about mindset. I talk a lot about mindset. That's why I put that stupid picture up there, or whatever you want to call that. But the mindset you have when you go into a networking event, if you really want to jet propel your business, I'm not very original. I say the same thing over and over again.
That's all right.
But you should go into a networking event not to make a sale. You should go into a networking event to make a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And that friend could be a potential customer, or that friend could be just a guy that you go and shoot the breeze with every once in a while, or that brand ambassador that you're talking about, whether or not they care about any of the coasters or anything else that you make at home, they care about Leland. So if somebody says, man, I just need new coasters in my house, he or she is going to say, I know a guy. And, in addition to that, if they decide that they want those things, they're going to go to you. They're going to look at their business card book rather than go to Google, because they know you. And so make a friend. Do not go into a networking group to sell.
No,
it's not what it's for.
No, you're not in the right place.
No. And you know what? If that's what you're doing when you go there, and I'll be honest with you, that's what I did when I first started going to those networking events. But if that's what you do when you go there, then you're not ready. Hopefully somebody grabs you by the arm, pulls you off to the side and says, JJ, what the heck are you doing, man? You haven't said one thing about yourself the entire time you've been here. Because people need to stop and think, oh, they have to care about me. I thought I'm just selling my services. Well, your services are there, but if they don't care about you, they're not going to care about anything that you're offering. Why would they spend money somewhere that they are going to walk away from thinking, wow, that guy was just pushing crap down my throat?
We are, as entrepreneurs, we're all in competition with the fast talking salesman.
Yes.
And no one wants to interact with the fast talking salesman.
Nope.
They want to interact with the business professional. Or at least it might not even be a business professional, but they just want to interact with a genuine individual that shares a common mission as they do in growing a business. And so, yeah, when you come to a networking event, you're just there, to make a friend. You're just there to grow your network. It wasn't a, sales workshop or something like that, or like it wasn't a, this isn't an opportunity on Shark Tank to come in and try to get a deal. Like, it's a networking event.
Yep.
Like,
yep. So, think of it this way, right? So if you ever watch a Tony Robbins, or if you watch even a comedian, maybe that person is also an actor, but do they ever talk about anything other than becoming a person when they come up on stage? You would never know that Tony Robbins is a life coach. You would never know that he's a financial advisor. You would never know that he has all these other offers. So he goes up on stage and he just makes people smile, lets them feel good about themselves. And then they spend thousands and thousands of dollars on Tony Robbins because they really like that big giant. That, think of it that way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. So what are some other than networking, in your opinion, what are some other $100 hours that you like to spend, whether it be on your business or, well, let's just learn a little bit about Leland.
Sure. So, as you can see behind me, I'm a huge Elvis fan.
Okay.
So I spend a lot of $100 hours on Elvis.
Oh boy.
Just kind of listening to his music, reading stories. I've been, fortunate enough to meet some of his friends. I've got a lot of friends that are Elvis tribute artists that have met, some of Elvis's friends and family. So I spend a lot of $100 hours on Elvis. And Elvis is, for me, I would say, not a huge part of my identity, but a huge part of my identity. It sort of gives me not like a direction or like a role model, but you kind of get where I'm going. There's,
sure. Yeah.
There's Elvis is a part of my identity. And I, of course, never, try to copy him because he's a hard guy to copy. But, I like to dress fancy sometimes, and, I kind of style my hair the way he does. And so I spend a lot of $100 hours on Elvis.
Wow.
Spend a lot of $100 hours reading. I was not a big reader in school. You'd never see me with a book. But then when I got out of school and realized that I can read the books that I want to and not just the books that are on the curriculum, I'm like, oh, books aren't that bad. So right now I'm reading Atomic Habits. And
that's a good one.
It is. Yeah, reading Atomic Habits. I've got a couple other books that I'm like in the middle of, but I've kind of put those on pause to focus on Atomic Habits. I like biographies a lot, because I think with biographies, it's a great way to have a conversation with the author. Or with the subject, or with the subject matter, if it's not a autobiography.
Sure.
And it's, because it's individuals that you might not get the chance to, have coffee with, to have lunch with, but I can kind of read this book and learn a little bit more about them and their mindset. So yeah, I don't spend as many $100 hours on reading as I should, or as I would like to, but that's because a lot of $100 hours are spent on other things.
Sure.
And then, just from, hanging out with friends and family and just trying to, still be me, be original, be Leland. I don't want to be too much of just a working machine.
No, you shouldn't be.
Yeah. But then, kind of finding the balance between putting the right amount of effort in growing my businesses, because we're very much at the infancy of all the businesses, and then still being authentic and original to who I am. And spending as many $100 hours on finding that balance.
Okay. Have you ever been to Graceland? I have to ask.
I have been to Graceland. I feel like I say a different number every time because I lose track. I want to say I've been to Graceland 3 times.
Wow.
There's at least that. Yeah, that sounds correct, because I went the very first time. And I knew who Elvis was. I knew he was the guy that wore the jumpsuits and had the cool hair. And you go to Graceland and you get hooked. Some people do, some people don't. For some people, it was like, oh, that was pretty cool. But for me, I went to Graceland the first time and I got hooked. So we got home and I learned a little bit more about Elvis. And then I said, okay, now I want to go back now that I know a little bit more about him. So I went back a second time, knowing a little bit more about him. And then you really get hooked because now you're picking up on things that you didn't know the first time that, like things that you then now learned about. You can go to Graceland and now see them. So you get even more and more hooked the second time. And then the third time was right before I left for the Marine Corps. My mom and I took a trip down through Nashville and stopped at Graceland, of course. So yeah, I've been to Graceland 3 times.
I haven't been there yet, but I've been told that I need to put that on my bucket list. So I'm going to put that on my bucket list.
The one thing that I would tell you about Graceland is, one, it's magical. It's like Disney for Elvis fans.
Disney.
And what I would say is when you go to Graceland and you're touring the mansion, as soon as you walk in the front door, I'm not one to have like out of body spiritual experiences or anything, but as soon as you walk in the front door, just kind of stand there for a couple of minutes, just kind of close your eyes and just kind of listen. And no one's going to tell you to move out of the way. Like everybody there is pretty respectful, and the tour sizes are pretty small depending on when you're there. But you can just walk right in the front door and just close your eyes and just kind of listen. And you can swear you can hear his daughter running around laughing. You can hear, the piano playing. You can hear Elvis laughing. Anybody that knows Elvis knows he had an infectious laugh, a very powerful laugh. But you can swear you can hear Elvis laughing. You can hear Lisa Marie running around and giggling, the piano playing. Like you can almost have like this out of body experience and feel like you're there, like with him, because everything in the house is the same way that it was when he passed away. Now, of course, there's not like a used coffee cup sitting on the table, like the house is clean or whatever, but the decor is all the same. Like the furniture is still all in the same place. Family photos are still hanging on the wall. Like it hasn't been like converted too much into a museum. You take a tour of the White House and it's a museum. Like if you're not in the working sections of the White House, it's a museum.
Okay.
But Graceland is still, it's like a time capsule, and it's wonderful to see. Like there's a paint chip on the wall, and it's like you start telling yourself these stories of like, oh, was that like one of Elvis's rings that like scratched the wall or something? Like you come up with all these wild things.
Yeah, I need to get down there. Maybe before I move back to Virginia in next year, actually. That's coming up pretty quick. But we are almost to 30 minutes. So this is about the time that I usually ask people, is there anything that you would like to share with the audience, just as final closing thoughts or advice? It can be anything, a message, whatever you would want to share with the audience.
Sure. So, I guess the one thing that I would share is, the way that I wrap up all of my podcasts, and I asked my podcast guests, how do you want to be remembered? It was a question that I heard when I was listening to someone give a speech, and it was Kent Stock. He was the first guest on my podcast, and he asked, how do you want to be remembered? And so that's the way that I wrap up all of my podcasts. And I just, want to make sure that, to kind of circle back to the $100 hour, how do you want to be remembered? Were you someone that spent a lot of $100 hours and don't really have much that, I don't want to say don't really have much that you're proud of, but like, did you spend a lot of $100 hours and then you kind of get to the end of the road and you have regrets? Or do you want to be remembered as someone that earned a lot of $100 hours, whether that was through, monetary reward or just through experiences and good times? Did you earn a lot of $100 hours? and then you can kind of get to the end of the road feeling fulfilled.
Hmm.
So my closing thoughts would just be, as you go through the day, are you earning or are you spending $100 hours? And is that how you want to be remembered?
Powerful message. And that's so true. It's all about perspective too. If you want to be known for spending quality time with other people, what are you doing to achieve that? And
Mhm.
if you want to be known for being a businessman that was also a family man, what are you doing to balance both of those things? That's just a really powerful message there. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
The one thing that I like to share with my audience at the end of every podcast or a live stream event is that if you really, really enjoyed the message that this podcast, conveyed, like the podcast, like the live stream, share it, repost it, like it, put a heart on it, whatever. But more importantly, keep the conversation going and leave a comment. People need to create conversations around the things that they think are important, and that could be $100 hour comment right there. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's really all I have. I appreciate everybody listening in. Stay blessed and take care.
Yeah. Wonderful.